What is going on, everybody? We are back with another edition of Fly Like an Eagle podcast. It is episode number 6. I'm back with Scotty. I'm Kyle. We're here every Wednesday at 2:30 or 3, depending on our schedules or whatever. I feel like I said it every single week, but it happens. I'm back from Florida. I'm in my living room, my nice, luxurious living room, as you can see. And, we're here to talk Eagles football. The draft is coming up next week, and it's a big one. We cannot miss on this one. But the first thing I'm going to start with is Scotty's top 5 Eagles games of all time. Since he wasn't here last week, he was a bit under the weather. My games from top to bottom were the Dallas game in 2008, 44-6. Number 4 was the Patriots versus Eagles game, week 15, 2015. Number 3 was Miracle at the Meadowlands, 2010. Number 2 was Super Bowl, and number 1 was the NFC title game in 2018. So Scotty, I know that's a big list to fill, but let's hear yours.
So the floor is mine. First of all, I just want to say I'm happy to be back on the show. Definitely feeling a lot better than last week. Haven't talked to you in a minute, Kyle. I'm glad that you had fun in Florida. Blast. When did you actually get back?
I got back on Friday. So I've been back for a little bit now. It was Friday afternoon, and the weather was 55 degrees here. It's 81 and sunny there every single week. So It was definitely something to get used to, but I'm back in the shitstorm, so let's get it.
Yeah, we had a couple good days, but, it doesn't last for long. That's for sure.
No, especially here. Ever.
Moving on to the birds, I know we brought up this topic 2 shows ago when we were talking about some of our top 5 most memorable games, most memorable Eagles moments. And I actually was thinking about this over the past week, a little bit yesterday too, because I know you were going to ask me this question. Number 5 for me, and I want to make sure I have it right, and I'm pretty sure that I do. I believe it's the 2003 playoffs, divisional round, 4th and 26, okay. Eagles and the Packers. I think that moment, I just remember I was like, how old was I in 03? 5 maybe?
You're 4 years younger than me. I was 11, so you would have been 7.
7, okay. It feels like I was younger than that, but I have a vivid memory in my grandpa's basement with Al Harris, and we just hated Al Harris that entire game.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every Eagles fan did. And then I believe David Akers won with it was an overtime field goal, right?
Yep, overtime field goal.
So loved that moment. I just think that was a very that's my biggest positive McNabb memory. Can you blame me? I feel like the Falcons championship game, I feel like it wasn't memorable, for a performance-wise for McNabb.
No, it wasn't. The only thing I'll disagree with you on is I thought that was probably his best memory of all time or moment, other than the run in 2008 to get to the championship game. Mm-hmm. But that moment for him was big because it was 4th and 26. Everyone thought the game was over. It was right down the middle of the field of FedEx. And, it was almost like we had everything in our basket. We were going to go to the Super Bowl. We were going to finally win. And then the next week, we lose 14-3 at home against Jake Delhomme and the Carolina Panthers, which kind of soured on everything. But, that moment right there, obviously that's not in my top 5 games, but I could see why Eagles fans would look at that as one of their top games because it was a memorable game. I was sitting here as an 11-year-old. I thought the season was over again. The season before that, we lost to the Bucs 27-10 at Veterans Stadium. And that was actually one of my first vivid memories of the Philadelphia Eagles was that Rondé Barber pick 6. And then I thought the season was over again. I was like, wow, is this what it's really like being an Eagles fan? We're going to have to deal with this suck-ass bullshit every single year. And then all of a sudden we win and we lose in worse fashion the next week. So, it's life as an Eagles fan, honestly.
Yeah, so for me, I have zero recollection of that Jake Delhomme Panthers game. I mean, I don't remember one single play from it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm kind of just going by I'm games and those special moment memories type thing. but also just the actual like game. Not trying to let the season. I mean, obviously the season plays a role in it, but it's more about the individual game for me. Number four. It's really close for me here. So my top games, number 4. This is a little bit debatable, but again, it's my list. It's my personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting the NFC Championship 2017 at number 4.
Okay.
Obviously, it was a great, complete domination, our most dominant playoff victory in franchise history since 1933, most likely, probably.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
You know, you had Case Keenum starting for the Vikings. You know, the whole game changed when he was picked off by Patrick Robinson. After they went down the field, put up 7, but after that, it was what 42-7 or 38-7, 38-7, right? It was the final.
Yeah,
pretty sure. What?
Yeah, 38-7 was the final. Kyle Rudolph went down for the first possession, caught the touchdown.
So yeah, that's number 4. Yeah, so that's number 4 for me. Obviously, you know, to get to the Super Bowl, huge game. We hadn't been to the Super Bowl since 04-05 season. Hadn't won an NFC Championship game since then too. Hadn't been to one since 08-09. The other ones I have above it, they're just better overall games and memories for me. But again, that was who doesn't love that game and moment? It's just it's not like a very, very strong, vivid memory in my head compared to the next 3.
Okay.
All right.
Now keep in mind, your 4 is my 1. So this list is going to be dynamic. I feel it's going to be dynamic.
All right. Number 3 for me is the Miracle in the New Meadowlands, Deshaun Jackson 2010 season with what is it, Matt Dodge, right? The muffed punt and the Tom Coughlin and you know everything. The who made that? Who made that that block? It wasn't Ike Reese, was it? No, who was that?
Gets a block. Oh no, it was Avonte, Jason Avonte.
It was Jason Avonte. Yeah. Obviously you had young Deshaun. He was still only in his 3rd season. That game was absolutely insane. Again, I remember exactly where I was, actually at my my grandparents' house in Hershey, PA. We watched the first half there. Obviously, it was a terrible first half. Drove back like during halftime, like back to where I live in Jersey, and I think I turned it on like almost like the end of the 3rd quarter, and you know we were still down big, and that magical run that from Brent Selleck to Jeremy Maclin, Vic just running up and down the entire field. I mean, that game, like it's like storybook, like movie worthy. Now, again, this is an example where that season obviously just fell apart and nothing really happened. They won the division, then lost in the wild card. But that punt return, like that made Deshaun Jackson for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
So, and that is a memory from that season that, again, 10-6, whatever, not really anything to write home about.
No.
But you'll never forget that game, that everything about that day. So that's number 3 for me. Number 2, which again, probably people might be a little, this is my personal. I was at this game. It was before the NFC Championship in 2017. It was the Eagles-Falcons, 15-10. And again, this was a really shitty game. I'll be the first to admit. This was 15-10. Nick Foles, I guess this was his first playoff game, I believe, as a starter.
Yeah, you called him a giraffe.
Oh, no. Foles played in 13 with Chip Kelly, I think, against. So
27-2 was his touchdown interception ratio. 2015.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Nick Foles
No,
throughout the.
I'll never forget. All right, so take a break for a second. I'll never forget. We were playing Dallas. It was 6-0, and Nick Foles wasn't even trying at that point. Nobody could play. I mean, it was 6-0, and you're sitting in your living room with your family, and at the same exact time, you asked everyone, "Would you rather have Foles or Sudfeld?" They all said Sudfeld, and I'm like, "God damn it!" But I never gave up on Nick Foles. Everyone knows me, well documented. He's like my favorite player in Eagles history, other than Jason Kelsey. But continue.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't want Nate Sudfeld, but I would have taken, I don't even know. I think I wanted like Tony Romo to come back out of retirement or something during that point. I think that's what it was. So, anyways, the end of that game for me clearly makes it. The 4th and goal, the defense stops Matt Ryan on like just a crazy, crazy play, and it's also like I feel like obviously the Eagles are known for defense, and I can't remember the last time we had a defensive stand like that in like years at that point. Like since the Jim Johnson days, I don't think we've ever had that like a 4 and out, 4th and goal. So that's just really memorable to me. And obviously I've told you the story before because I was there, like in the nosebleeds, people were just going nuts. I had this little kid like jump in my arms and I swung him around. The parents were like, "Oh my God, don't drop him." Like, down the steps, down the corridor, the alleyway. It was just like, I don't know. I know you were there too. And I know you were there for the championship game. But
yeah, I was fucking freezing my balls off that game. Like, honestly, like, I
felt magic. I felt magic. And I also remember like Eagles are going to the NFC Championship game, leaving the stadium. Like, oh my fucking God. Like, this is hype. I cannot believe we're hosting the NFC Championship game next week. Like, I have a lot of memories like that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the one part in that game where I thought it was magic. Now, I was basing my top 5 based off of like overall games, that I saw, like not moments. That would be a little bit different. But the one magic moment was when it hit O'Neal and it bounced back to our receiver, and then he called it. It would have been a touchdown.
Yeah,
that's why I was thinking, this might be magic, like you just said. And then all of a sudden we had that 4th and goal stand. Julio Jones doesn't land in bounds, and that was fucking phenomenal. And that also happened in the regular season, week 1 of 2018. He didn't land in bounds on 4th and goal. So it was like the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like that Falcons team, obviously they just went to the Super Bowl the year before, obviously the 28-3, but Julio Jones was in his prime. So, I mean, to shut him down was really, really impressive. And then obviously, what's up?
Do you mean to say that Julio Jones wasn't in his prime with us last year?
I think he was in the retirement home.
Yeah, the wheelchair.
Right? The wheelchair, if that makes. I mean, more power to him. That was a weird move because I was a little excited. Like, who wasn't? Okay, I don't think you were a fan, if I remember right, or didn't care that much.
Nah, he was done. He was donezo. I mean, I liked him better than Quez Watkins, but other than that,
yeah, I'm like a number 3, and like, who knows? I feel like, I mean, he still could catch the ball. He had like 2 touchdowns or whatever he had.
Yeah,
who knows? I'm done. I'm done with last year. I really, really am.
I mean, it started off great, and then all of a sudden, downhill.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of hard. It's like, well, why didn't they just? I feel like they could have just threw the ball to Julio in the end zone, like a fade route. Like, just that could have been the only thing you could do with him, and he could do it probably. So I don't know.
Literally.
And then obviously last number 1, no surprise, it is the Super Bowl for me. Eagles over the Patriots, of course. Just like, again, storybook worthy. Backup quarterback Nick Foles, obviously the number 1 headline from that story, defeats the evil empire, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Who would have ever thought a backup quarterback from the Philadelphia Eagles could accomplish that? And also in a shootout. That was like, I mean, honestly, I know people were saying it after, but you could turn that game on and you will never not be entertained. Because that game is just so good back and forth. there's never a dull or boring moment like in a Super Bowl. Like I'm trying, even like this past Super Bowl, really up until like the fourth quarter, it was kind of like, yeah, it wasn't like must see TV in my opinion. But that game, it was, again, if you like defense, your opinion on that, whatever. But it was nonstop action. And for the Eagles, you had like Corey Clement had an amazing day. Zach Ertz obviously defined his legacy as an Eagle that day. You know, we always talk about the Brandon Graham strip sack.
Yep.
And then, you know, Foles, you know, the Philly special, the Doug Peterson and Foles connection, Alshon Jeffrey, everything just went so beautifully perfect that day. And I mean, I don't, you know, this is just my opinion, but like even people were saying the 2017 team versus the 2022 team, which team was better? A lot of people were voting for the 2022 team, obviously before they lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I think even if they won, I think that, like, I don't know if there's ever going to be a better team than that 2017 team.
No.
I think it's going to be the best Eagles team of all time.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I completely agree with you. Everyone on that team played perfectly. You know, like this guy said, even Derek Barnett scooped up the fumble. So it's like, you look at 2022, like if they would have won that Super Bowl, obviously it would have been in the top 5 games of all time, because that was another game where if you like defense, you're not watching that game. Like it was back and forth the whole game. But there was just something memorable about that Super Bowl. Now, granted, I had the title game over the Super Bowl because that title game was perfect. I was there, and it just started something magical. I'll never forget that game. It was loud. My ear's still not recovered from that game. And it was like one of the best experiences of my life. Now, if I went to the Super Bowl, that probably would have been number 1 for me. I watched it at Xfinity Live, and then I met you afterwards with Rob. We celebrated on Broad Street, and a bunch of plants got killed, and it was like one of the best nights of my life. People riding dune buggies up the Rocky Steps, just nuts. People
it was
are nuts,
like, man. It was like the underworld. Like you just never thought. I'm like, where the hell are we? Right? It's like, I remember like, you know, the cops at the end trying to clear everybody off, and then you just like couldn't get through to certain parts. It's like, and it's like the more you traveled into the cities, like the more you saw, and you didn't know what you were going to see next. So it was crazy.
I think that's my issue with the younger fans today. Like they don't know how good they actually have it. Like it went up until that moment to realize that, wow, we actually won the world championship. Before that, any real Eagles fan, we never thought we were ever going to win. We never thought it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it took a perfect team just 1 year. Granted, we weren't a dynasty. It was just a perfect year with the perfect pieces, the perfect coaching, and it happened. You know, and that's what could have happened.
The leadership was like outstanding, in my opinion, that year.
Right. And that's what could have happened in 2022, but it was the opposite. You know, we had the perfect coaching, perfect leadership, perfect everything, but we had that one mistake that just killed everything, and we had that one penalty that killed everything. So
are you talking about the punt? And
no, I'm talking about the fumble in the beginning of the game. I'll go the fumble, and then I'll go the punt return by Tony. So 2 mistakes.
I blame that on the defense.
Yeah. But when you're facing great quarterbacks and great teams, you can't have many mistakes, and you can't have penalties at the end of the game like that.
So for me, it's like, because the second half, they gave up the same play to Mahomes in the end zone twice on back-to-back drives.
Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, on the same play, the same route. So like that, I don't know. That was just very frustrating. It was on the defense to me, but you know, it's a team game. We know it's, you know, one play doesn't make a game. As cliche as that sounds, it is the case.
It's basic, yeah.
Unless you you fumble the ball and they take it back for a touchdown with 3 seconds left and you have the lead, something like that. Or that's the one play that changed the game,
literally.
But that's my top 5. But as I was thinking, I'm like, should we do our top 5 worst? Because we are Eagles fans and we do like to sulk in the misery before the Super Bowl win. I think that would be
Okay.
fun. Do we want to do it now, or do we want to?
All right, let's go back and forth. Let's do our top 5 worst Eagles games of all time, and then we'll put in some draft talk and re-signings and all that stuff.
I think this will
So,
be fun, right?
without further ado, our top 5 worst Eagles games of all time. I'm gonna let Scotty go first, and then I'll give my number.
All right,
5.
we're gonna go 5-1, right? Or we're just gonna shoot them out.
Yep. We'll go to 5-1.
All right. Oof. Okay, number 5 to me. Damn, I really gotta I hate that you got a little second to do a little research here.
I'm going to.
Number 5.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
There's so many. Okay, I'm guessing.
There's so many.
There is. I mean, there is since I started watching in 2000. All right, number 5 for me. I'm gonna actually put it from this past season, and I'm going to say the worst game for me from this past season. I think it has to be. Oof. I think it has to be the Arizona Cardinals game from this past season. That game was the dagger, the knife in my heart, in this season's heart. They could have, even if they lost to the Niners, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, they barely beat the Giants. If they could have beat that shitty team flying from the West Coast at 1 p.m. on New Year's Day, they still could have won the division and had a home playoff game somehow if they could have beat the Cardinals and the Giants the next week. And they couldn't do it. They could not do it. They let James Conner thrash them. Kyler Murray had a comeback game. It was disgusting. It was so embarrassing. I wasn't angry, but I was just in complete shock that we lost to the Cardinals. So that was number 5 for me, and that was my worst moment of that season. I know you could probably say the 49ers game because that's what started the collapse, but you're losing to the 5-12 Cardinals. Jesus Christ.
So my number 5, we're going back to 2009. My number 5, and the reason why it's so high, not number 1, 2, or 3. The reason why it's higher is because we did lose our center, and it kind of changed the momentum on our offense. But it has to be the Donovan McNabb air guitar game. It had to be. I mean, that was his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle, and he got traded to Washington right after it. 34-14.
The Cowboys playoff game.
Yeah, where he comes in like this with Deshaun Jackson and Vic, and he's doing the guitar, and then
Michael Vick goes in and throws the touchdown, right?
Just like that. Yep, just one little throw, and everyone wanted Vic in there, and then my dad's like, "Nope, you got to ride the ship. You got to ride McNabb," and I'm like, "Why?" And then all of a sudden, we just lose, pulling a Band-Aid off. And it wasn't even a Band-Aid. It was duct tape off slowly on the hairiest part of your arm. It was just the most ridiculous game I've ever seen as a kid. And I was like, we lost these chodes 2 weeks in a row.
That was just a weird season. That was a weird season.
It was awful. And it's definitely top 5 losses of all time. That was a wacky season. We actually looked decent for a part of it. The one game where we played the 49ers where the fans were throwing snowballs at the fans. And then we beat Tim Tebow and Brian Dawkins on his return. And then we go into the playoffs and just have a performance like that. It was a fucked up season. But yeah, that's definitely number 5 for me.
And then again, these are our top 5 worst games of all time since we've been watching. So around 2000-ish to now, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, number 4 for me. I have my number 1, and I'm pretty sure you already know what it is for me personally. My number 4. Ooh, there's so many good ones to choose from. All right, number 4. I'm gonna go from the season before because there's actually 2. I'm gonna make it a tie. Because this was terrible. Tie when they tied the Cincinnati Bengals 13-13 and then they were demolished by the Baltimore Ravens 36-7. And when McNabb was pulled from that game, the first time ever that Reed benched McNabb, and you have that fucking video picture silhouette of McNabb in that black raincoat with the beanie, just looking absolutely miserable
That
on
was
the sideline. What?
that was against the Ravens, if I can
Yes.
recall.
Yeah, 36-7.
Oh my
I think Kevin Cobb replaced. I think it might have been Kevin Cobb came in and replaced him. I'm not sure.
Kevin Cobb replaced him and then threw one right into the breadbasket of Ed Reed. He returned it for 107 yards.
Yeah, that was terrible. So that, and I feel like especially at that point, because we were obviously used to a lot of regular season success up to that point. We've never used to being like blown out and being like caught with our pants down. So at that moment, we're like, damn, this season. And obviously, we know we somehow recovered and went all the way to the championship game, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, that was definitely a very wake-up call for me as a fan. I'm like, oh shit, this is what losing feels like. I'm not really used to this in the regular season, I would say.
Yeah, no, not at all. That was a really good one. I'm going to go number 4. I'm going to go a little bit mellow here. But for me, this was kind of like a heartbreaking loss to me. It has to be Super Bowl 39, Patriots and Eagles. 2005, technically, because, I was old enough to understand, and I was in that era where we lost 3 straight NFC Championship games, won our fourth one, obviously, against Atlanta Falcons in the freezing cold. And then Donovan McNabb just gets drunk at a bar, throws up on the field, has 3 interceptions, and we lose by 3 points. Now, if he doesn't go to the bar, gets drunk, and throws up on the field and doesn't throw any 3 interceptions, we probably win that game, right? Well, we're all assuming, right? Right? Yep. And then we blame it on Spygate, which honestly, I've done blaming it on that because we were such a bit. Honestly, this is what pains me about that game. That team right there was more talented and better than the one that actually won, in my opinion.
No,
I truly believe it. I really do. If you look at the talent
overall roster, but I will take them in just a game to win a game. I will take 2017. But Hall of Famers, career, all pros, yeah. But like, like I told you before, that 2017 team was not going to lose to the Patriots, Jaguars. Yeah. I think that the Chiefs, I think they could have beat anyone that day. They were unstoppable, especially the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that's one that just sticks out a little bit. Now, I wasn't crying during the game. It was our first Super Bowl appearance of my lifetime. So I was watching and I was like, this is fun. Then we lose and it just hits me. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Did you see what Chad said?
No, because as a kid, I'm always expecting us to go back to the Super Bowl or be in contention the next year. I'm like, oh, we're going to be back, whatever. And then we just fall off a cliff. T.O. gets suspended and that's pretty much that.
Did you see the comment that he's like, I have a top 1,000 for these teams?
Dude, it's so bad. Being an Eagles fan can be brutal at times, but yeah, number 4.
We're perfectionists. Like we've seen more wins than losses, but we just
have we?
We're true fan. I mean, we have overall technically for we've been watching. So
yeah.
The Super Bowl again. I was 3 years younger than you. I don't have the most vivid memories of Super Bowl. Obviously disappointed that we lost, but at that point in time, I knew there was controversy with T.O. and McNabb, but I didn't think T.O. was. I didn't really think T.O. was going to leave like that soon, because if he stayed, we would have won at least one with them. We probably would have won 2 more. So at that point, I wasn't like completely crushed because I'm like, I know we can do this again with T.O. and McNabb. I mean, T.O. was unstoppable that season and he even got hurt. Imagine if he didn't get hurt in that Dallas game, how his numbers and how much more memorable he would have been throughout the playoff run. Like he would have it would have been something to see. Like he would even be more of a legend in this town and honestly his whole career, because that's his only real playoff experience and run, T.O.
Yep.
So if he played in those games, I think sky is the limit. And I think it's a shame, but they would have bent over backwards for his contract if they saw him perform well in those playoff games too. Because the
Absolutely.
Eagles, it's like a body of work for them, which is stupid because it's T.O. and we know he's a Hall of Famer then. He's a Hall of Famer now. He was a Hall of Famer his rookie season, right? Playing next to Jerry Rice. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I thought we would get back and we didn't. So,
nope.
All right, believe him on. I mean, I did 2 games for 4, but whatever.
Do you want me to do number 3 and then go back to you for number 3?
Sure, if you got one on top of your head.
Yeah, so number 3, we're starting to get into the gut-wrenching defeats, like the ones where it really hits you hard. So number 3 for me, I know it's going to be different from him, but number 3 for me was the 20-14 loss in the Superdome, 2018 playoffs, divisional game. It was Nick Foles. He was in his second season where he could have went back-to-back. And we start off on top of the game, 14-0. Jordan Matthews catches a touchdown. And then out of nowhere, he throws an interception when he's trying to reach Zach Ertz. It completely shifts the momentum of the game. The Saints come back. Alshon Jeffrey drops the pass, and we lose the game. And in my opinion, the reason why that's so gut-wrenching and it's number 3 for me is because I looked at that Super Bowl, Patriots versus Rams. The Eagles could have went back-to-back. The Patriots.
Remember we watched that game together in your friend's basement where they beat the Rams.
Yep. And I feel like if he didn't drop that pass, we would have won that game, and I think they could have went back-to-back in the Super Bowl. So the reason why that's not higher on my list is because, yes, you did lose Fletcher Cox. You lost a couple of key pieces, and I feel like if you were to piece that together, maybe we couldn't have figured it out and put it together. But at the same time, it was right there for the taking just because the teams that were left, we already beat the Rams, and the Patriots we just beat the year before, and they didn't look too hot in the Super Bowl. So you look at all that, and I honestly feel like we could have had a shot to go back-to-back.
I know. It's like, how did Chip Kelly beat the Patriots? But you actually just gave me a good idea for my number 2. I think I have it. Yeah. All right. I think I have my last 3. If I think of another one, I'll just throw it in. But my number 3, going back to the 2010 season, right after that new Miracle at the Meadowlands beautiful game, a huge snowstorm hits the Northeast region, hits Philly. And, I think we're used to games being like rescheduled, this, that, random days with COVID. But this game was, I think it was a Sunday night game. Whatever. It got pushed to Monday. Then it got pushed to Tuesday night. And I'm like, there hadn't been a Tuesday night game in the NFL in like years. Like I said, with COVID now and stuff like that, it's not as crazy. But at that point, it's like ludicrous. Like a Tuesday night NFL game. What the hell is going on? So I feel like, I'm like, all right, we had that lure. Also, we're feeling so confident after that big win. We're like, this team sucks. Their quarterback was it Joe Webb?
Joe Webb.
Who was a wide receiver converted quarterback. And I feel like he was like, they were doing like wildcat and like direct snaps, and he was playing running back too. And this was such a letdown again. Like, we lose to the shitty teams when we're on a roll into the playoffs is such a fucking buzzkill for me. And it was like, they fucking had the fans helping out, shoveling the snow, like, let's go, yeah, and like fucking all the air, gas, whatever was just sucked out of the stadium that night. And then, of course, we never recovered. We lose to Dallas the next week, lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in the playoffs. So it's just like, again, like when we go down, it's so unexpected and weird. Like, we're losing to Joe Webb, and Joe Webb basically ended our season after we just had the most magical game, like one of them in history. And I think it was, who was the hell? Was it Leslie Frazier or somebody was like that? Or I don't think it was Marty Morningweg. I don't know who the hell the coach was.
It was probably Leslie Frazier.
Yeah, Leslie Frazier. So yeah, that's number 3 for me. I just remember being so disappointed and shocked. I'm like, I waited 3 extra days for this game to play this shitty ass team, and I thought it was going to be like a little national spotlight. Let's just blow them out, and we fucking lose to Joe Webb.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that one at all. Dude, it's bringing back some bad memories, man. So number 2 and 1 for me are like on the verge of like crying to crying, and number
Wait,
2.
don't get number 1, but unless you want me to end with my 2 and 1.
Oh no, I'm just going 2, but number 1 was so clear to me personally. Number 2, I'm gonna go the 2009 NFC title game. Just the way the season ended, just the way the game went, just how we got into the playoffs.
2008, 2009.
2008, 2009. Just how we got into the playoffs, just how everything transpired, how hot we were. That was like the most clusterfuck ending in my Eagles fandom in history. And the only reason why it's not number 1 is because number 1, I was a kid, and it was so detrimental to me that I'll never forget it. But the way this ended, old ass Kurt Warner, who was a backup on the Giants not too long before, they get on a hot streak. They have a home game when they didn't deserve it. They were up 24-3 at halftime. We come all the way back just to go ahead 26-24. Deshaun Jackson bobbling it, then scoring. We beat the Giants, the top team in the NFL, the week before in the Meadowlands, 23-11. We beat Minnesota Vikings and Tavares Jackson. We beat the Cowboys 44-6, the last home game of the year. We lose to the Washington Redskins at the time. Before that, looking like we're out.
Don't say that word. Don't say that word.
And it's tease after tease after tease after tease after tease. And just when you think it's over, it's 26-24. They go right down the field and end our season. 32, I think it was the 25 or something like that. I just
25.
It made me puke. It was such a brutal ending. And on top of that, I feel like that team could have beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was a brutal loss to me. And the first one in my young adulthood, to where it really felt like my heart was just ripped out of my fucking body. And it was just so brutal. And I'll never forget that one. It was disgusting.
Yeah, actually, the Eagles were ranked by, I think it was like the ESPN Power Index. They were actually ranked the number 1 best overall team, like play for play. And obviously, I will be talking about that game in a second. So
that's number 1.
I have my own experience, and a little spoiler. Our number 1s are the same for the exact same reason. All right, my number 2. And I'm pretty sure it's my number 2 because nothing else really comes to mind that hurt as bad as this. Just doing a little quick. Number 2, a little bit of surprising. I think it's a forgettable, but I don't fucking forget it. Like when I think about it, comes from the 2015 season, Chip Kelly's last year, Thanksgiving Day massacre. Lions, Eagles. It was, again, in my opinion, this is when a team quit. We got blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home the week before, 45-17. And then we follow it up with almost the exact same score in Detroit, 45-14. And I hate getting embarrassed on nationally televised games, especially a holiday like Thanksgiving, sitting around your entire family wearing your Eagles jersey and looking like a complete fucking idiot. And I have vivid memories of Calvin Johnson destroying, I guess it was it Bradley Fletcher and Kerry Williams still at this point? It doesn't, or Byron Maxwell, I think it was. Oh, God. I think it was Byron Maxwell in 2015.
Yeah, horrible.
And it was just, it was non-competitive. Again, it really felt like they quit. It reminds me of that Tampa Bay Bucks playoff game from this year with not tackling. And you know what? Again, people have their own opinions of Chip. Oh, they're blaming like, oh, Chip the GM. But like if the players just quit and stop playing, nothing to do with being a damn GM.
Yep.
You're coaching the players at that point. Why are you not putting in the effort? These are NFL players. You shouldn't be getting blown out and just destroyed, not non-competitive, automatic touchdowns every single drive. And at that moment, we knew Chip was gone out of here. Again, in typical Eagles fashion, somehow they beat the fucking Patriots next week. And we know Jeffrey Lurie was in the locker room giving his like roo-roo, ha-ha, like high school speech to like change it around because the past 2 weeks were embarrassing. And again, this was such a weird season with Sam Bradford starting, and then the week before Tampa, they had that weird Miami game where they should have won, but that they lost. Whatever. Again, the point is that Thanksgiving game was disgusting. It was one of my worst Eagles memories, just non-competitive from the start, and we had to sit there and watch the whole game on Thanksgiving, the only game on, and just suffer. So.
I don't know what's worse, you sitting there with your jersey on after your team gets their ass whooped, or forgetting to take it off and going into a store, and then someone sarcastically says, "Didn't you guys lose?" And then you just keep, and then you guys just keep walking.
Especially on Thanksgiving. Yep. Yeah, it's a shame. Especially at that point when you knew the season was over. Also, when you lose on Thanksgiving like that, you don't play until like the following Sunday or Monday. So it's just like, awful. Fuck our lives. Fuck.
I didn't even want to eat. I wanted to like just sit there and just drink wine.
It was terrible. Oh my God. So yeah, that's number 2 for me. I have a feeling I know you're number 1 for sure. So I'll give you.
You probably don't. It's completely random, but it's sentimental and it hits hard. It hurts very hard. So my number 1 loss of all time was actually the 2003-2004 NFC title game. Versus the Carolina Panthers. I talked about it earlier.
Wait, not the Bucks? I was expecting the Bucks, right?
No, it's not the Bucks. It's 2003-2004 NFC title game.
Okay.
The Bucks, the reason why it's not the Bucks, and it's probably yours because I remember you saying it's probably both our number 1s. It could be 1A, 1B, but here's the reason why it's not the Bucks and it is the Panthers. So the reason why it's not the Bucks is because, number 1, I've never been to Veterans Stadium in my life. And I know if you're in the stadium and you know they're closing it out and it's never going to be a thing anymore, I could see why people would put that as a number 1 loss. But number 2, the reason why it's not up there for me is because I honestly just started watching Eagles football around that time, and it wasn't as emotional to me because I wasn't as invested into it as I should be. And and looking back on it and how the Oakland Raiders lost that Super Bowl to them, that would have been our first Super Bowl ever. So yeah, Tampa Bay Buccaneers never won in 30-degree weather before. It was the first time ever. We had a great team that year. We had Deuce Staley running the back in the kickoff, almost to the end zone on the first play of the game. And I could see why that would be many Eagles fans' top loss of all time. But nothing hurt me more as a kid than seeing the Philadelphia Eagles, after 4th and 26, put up 3 points in their 3rd straight NFC title game loss to the hands of Jake Delhomme, John Fox, and Muhsin Muhammad. That will always stay with me. That's the only time as an Eagles fan, other than being belligerently drunk and watching Green Bay kick our ass in the stands in 2016, that is the first time as an Eagles fan that I really, really cried over a loss. Not a win, a loss. I'm watching on TV with my mom. She's like, hear me scream bloody murder. I wanted to call the NFL. I wanted to change the whole score around. It was just brutal watching McNabb get injured.
And how old were you? How old were you at this point?
So 2004, this was the beginning of 2004. So I was 11 years old. Okay. And I was just so upset because that was the first full year that I was truly invested in the Philadelphia Eagles. And to watch it end like that, I was like, I wanted that old man to say, hey, this is what it's like being an Eagles fan. Enjoy it, kid. I just wanted that one little moment, and I never got that moment. Just had to fucking cry it out and just deal with it the next year. And next year, everything was just, it was just a blur to me because I was so numb to that loss. It was an awful loss. And that's another one to where I don't see how many Eagles fans don't rank that higher because that was a brutal fucking game. I'll never forget that game as long as I live. I know it's
So
kind
it's
of random.
interesting. So it's interesting because I feel like every young Eagles fan has that moment, but it's a different game because my number one and when I fucking cried my eyes out was the 2008 NFC Championship
Yeah.
game because I was there. My grandparents used to live in Scottsdale, Arizona. Me and my dad and my other grandpa got tickets to go. So hype again. The Cardinals were like a little dream run. I think they were like 8-8 or 9-7. We felt so confident. We had history and experience on our side. I'm so excited. This was actually my first ever Eagles game away, NFC Championship game, Arizona Cardinals 2008, 2009. I actually ended up being on Comcast Sportsnet the old time at that time. I was like in some like Eagles Nest desert bar. I mean, like everything was like perfect. I'm like, I don't even know. You're better at ages than me. I guess I was probably like 10 or 11 or whatever. Somewhere in that age group at the time. Anyways, after, again, the defense didn't really show up to that game. Memorable moment for me is Brian Dawkins in the press conference apologizing for the way the defense played. That was Jim Johnson's last game before he unfortunately died. And yeah, it was just like it was a classic like McNabb, Andy Reid kind of like choke combo. And I remember that red and white confetti falling down, and I just lost it. I was done. There was a Larry Fitzgerald mural in the Commodore area. I threw my Eagles hat at the Larry Fitzgerald mural. I have all these Cardinals fans again. I'm like a 10-year-old kid. They're like, suck it, like Eagles suck or whatever. Again, I'm crying my eyes out. All right, so we get to the car to leave the stadium, and we literally have Cardinals fans like banging on our car, like it was nuts. It was literally insane. We were like the outsiders in some neighborhood. Like they're gonna put us like on the cross, like literally.
It was like a haunted house, but a live one.
No, for real. And again, I feel like I was just so confident. Like, there's no way we can lose. I think every Eagles fan was feeling that way. Then we get back to my grandparents' house. I literally just go in the room, shut the door, and like cried for like 3 hours. I'm like, we came all this way for that. My grandpa had to come in and like calm me down.
Yeah.
But that was such like a disappointment because again, everything it's like T-ball, like putting the ball on the tee and you just have to hit it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's not coach's pitch, it's not high school, it's literally T-ball. I mean, you really couldn't have asked for a better scenario. Also, they beat the Cardinals on that random Thanksgiving night game the same season. They were wearing the black jerseys. Brian Westbrook had a great game. They just blew him out.
48-20.
And then it was just pure disappointment. So, yeah, that's my number one. But it's funny that we both have like the same experience, but like, I was your age at that time. So it's like just had different games. My first memory as an Eagles was actually the 2002 Bucks game.
Yeah.
But again, I was really younger, so I wasn't as emotionally invested or fully understood. But that's my first like vivid memory of watching the Eagles on TV was that 2002 Bucks championship game.
I mean, the only thing I remember that like it's weird, but the only thing I really remember about that Buccaneers and Eagles game was the halftime performance by Ja Rule and that Ashanti chick. That's the only thing I remember because like they're singing and all of a sudden the crowd's booing them, and I'm like, why are they booing them? Like I couldn't really understand it at the time, but now I kind of can because it was fucking.
I feel like I remember. Did McNabb throw a pick six in that game?
Yeah, and Rondé Barber.
Yes, that's what I remember. That's pretty much it from that.
Rondé Barber's still running back to Tampa Bay.
That Tampa defense, like half of it's in the Hall of Fame, so we can't like hate on that. But like we know that run of championship games is just like these teams kind of came out of nowhere because we were like the flagship, like the number one seed, and we like were the most consistent. We're like, what the hell is going on? The Panthers, the Bucks, like, and then at 08, the Cardinals, but like we were like the dominant NFC team from like 2000 to 2009.
Yep.
And it's like all these other teams. Remember the Bears made the Super Bowl, and we're like, what's happening? Why can't we get over the hump? Why can't we do it? And it was just weird. I mean, ultimately, we can kind of like talk about this because like a lot of our number one games trauma losses come from. I mean, ultimately, we see what Andy Reid is still doing and has done with Patrick Mahomes now. And like you said, the Super Bowl, it's kind of weird. Like, where do you rank McNabb? Did Reid make McNabb a lot better than he would have been? I think McNabb had talent, but we know Patrick Mahomes could literally, if not already, is the GOAT. I mean, he's insanely talented, and it's really hard. It's kind of going to be like a Belichick Brady thing where we're going to have to see when one of them leaves, who's the mastermind, who's a little bit better. But we know Reid's track record before, but he never had a Patrick Mahomes quarterback. It's kind of complicated, but what's your thoughts on that? How good was McNabb? How good is Reid? And then Reid with Mahomes, like, what's your opinion on all those dynamics?
Well, I think it took Andy Reid 20 years to mature as an NFL coach. We would go back in the days, we'd watch how he'd progress or digress. Like the way that he
Kyle.
What?
Timeout, right? We got 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes into the first quarter.
Yeah.
We have to get timeout, right?
Yeah, exactly. We need 3 timeouts at the end of the game. We'd only have 1 or 2 because he would take a useless timeout because he's not prepared during the game. We had to put up through that. We had to put through that throughout his 14 years as a Philadelphia Eagles head coach because he didn't know how to call timeouts. He didn't know how to have proper game management, and with quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't need that anymore, or he developed his brain finally as a 67-year-old man to realize what it takes to win in the NFL. To me, I'm not going to disrespect Donovan that much, only because he was very consistent with us when it came to winning football games. Now, granted, he didn't win the big one. There are known losers to where they're great in the regular season but don't show up during the playoffs, and that happens in every single sport. But overall, Donovan's still the best quarterback in franchise history. Like overall, my favorite is Nick Foles, but if you want to look at the workload, the sample size, whatever you want to call it, he's definitely the best one, consistently. And he got us to 5 NFC Championship games. Granted, Reid helped him get there. He had
Do you think McNabb would have been the same on a different team without Reid, or no?
It's a good question. No. And the reason why I'm saying that is because he went to Washington. He didn't look great right off the bat.
I mean, Washington's a bad example. Washington's like the pits.
But he came back against us when Michael Vick broke his ribs, and he beat us in that game. He came back and beat us. So I have to give him credit there. But then we go down to D.C., and it was a massacre. So that's one of my favorite games of all time. I can't believe I didn't put that on my list, actually. But when we went down there and Vic just tore it up, it was like 54 to like 23 or something like that on Monday night. That was like one of the better games. But to answer your question, without Reid, probably not. No,
because honestly, I kind of take it back because if he was on the Cowboys or the Giants during that like 2006, like those teams had good defenses, DeMarcus Ware, Michael Strahan, and they had good receivers too. So I think he could have been really good on those teams too. He needs talent around him. He didn't have any receivers.
He had none.
The defense was always good.
Yeah.
But he's not Patrick Mahomes. He needs talent around him like every quarterback does. But again, like you're defined by look at Tony Romo. He had great regular seasons. Obviously, McNabb was a lot better in the playoffs and actually won playoff games.
Right.
But people remember Romo just for losing, really, and they kind of remember McNabb in the same way, right?
But here's the thing: like, they're about to put Eli Manning into the Hall of Fame for whatever reason, just because it's his last name, I
Two
guess.
Super Bowls, but I think McNabb is better than Eli. I will
He's
say
much
that.
better. It's not even a comparison. McNabb never led the league in turnovers once, let alone twice. So it's like, yeah, you can win Super Bowls.
It's tough because Eli won 2 Super Bowls, so I mean that kind of has to make him better. But overall, like talent-wise, but obviously Eli wins in accomplishments, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of that's defense too. They had OCU Mangura, Strahan. They had all of these guys on defense, and Justin Tuck. Like, you can't just look at it and say Eli did everything. Yeah, he made the right throws, but let's not say he was like Nick Foles in the Super Bowl type of good. Like, Nick Foles literally outdueled Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. Like, the defense had no part in it till the end of the game. The defense for that 2008 Giants team, it was 17-14, the final score. If that defense didn't step up and beat one of the best teams of all time, they're ringless. And that throw at the end of the game, to who was it? It was I'm forgetting the name.
David Tyree, right?
Yeah, the helmet catch by David Tyree. It was a miracle, and that play should have been whistled down by the referee. If everyone's forgetting, so you look back at these Super Bowls. Yeah, they beat the Patriots twice, but that defense was the staple of those games. It wasn't Eli Manning.
But it was a different era when you could play defense more and the hitting. That's what my biggest takeaway. And the Patriots defense was no slouch either during that time. They were very good with Teddy Bruschi and Willis McGahee. I'm sorry, Willie McGinnis, not McGahee. Asante Samuel, and then who's that really good safety they had?
Rodney Harrison.
Oh my God, they had someone else. Wasn't he like Samoan? He had like a really cool name.
Sayu.
Yeah. That defense was stacked. So in my opinion, sorry, but that was a lot better than the Eagles and definitely the Patriots defense in our Super Bowl win. So again, just 2 different eras, but I loved everything we just talked about. We kind of like did a little blast from the past episode here. I know we don't have much time left. Are we doing till what time today? Or what time do we have?
What time do you have to be out of here?
I can do this probably till like 3:50, 3:45, a couple more minutes.
Yeah. All right, so let's run over the draft real quick. We'll have about 15 minutes to go. So the draft is next Thursday. I think it's
Thursday
in prime time. All right, so it's in Thursday.
Do you want to do a live stream for the pick if we can?
Yes, absolutely. We picked 22nd overall. There are a lot of thoughts and opinions out there, and I'm sold on cornerback. I want cornerback. I would take anything that's not a guard or a tackle offensively. If we get a guard or a tackle offensively, I'm going to be really pissed off because that pretty much means that you're giving up on Tyler Steen already, who you wasted a 3rd-round pick from Alabama last year. So I'd be really pissed off. But Cooper DeJean, I would love. He's actually I've been warmed up to him a little bit. So that's my pick, Cooper DeJean or Brock Bowers, but we're not going to get Brock Bowers. Let's be real here.
I think we're going to get Kool-Aid, and I would actually bet money on that.
I love Kool-Aid.
I do. It's just so weird, but I was actually telling my dad this. I think he just has too cool of a name to not be like a good player. Like it's just like so. I don't know if you believe in that, but it's like, all right, Jason Smith or like those random names. But I feel like if you have a name like that, I don't know. It's not always doesn't always work out that way. All right, Sidney Jones. I'm sorry, this is so dumb and super like a superstition. Anyways, to reality, I think he is a really, really good player. He's great value at number 22.
Oh, you know what? You brought up a good point.
I think again we both agree.
You brought up a good point there. I mean, whenever
as far
you hear
as what, like the name.
Yeah. Well, no, when you hear names and it just doesn't sound right, you automatically think they're gonna suck. It usually works out like that. Like Logan Kyle or something like that, or Kyle, or I don't
Something so
know, keep first
generic,
name.
right? Something so
Kyle
generic.
Doug. Yeah, something like that.
Bob Smith, right?
Yeah, Bob Smith. You know, it usually doesn't work out. Sidney Jones, like it just doesn't work out.
So yeah, I mean,
Um,
obviously, I mean, imagine like if he's actually a good player, just signs and chants and T-shirts for him in Philly, like that would be an unreal, right?
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I like I said, I kind of fell in love with him throughout this process. Do you want to talk on that Howie Roseman comment about Hassan Reddick? But one last thing about the draft, I think we have 7 picks, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Yep.
Finally, I feel like it's the first time like we've had like a first, second, third. Usually I feel like we're missing one of those top 3 rounds, so that'll be nice to see. But do you agree that I don't know, I feel like actually we don't have a 3rd round pick, but we have 2 second-round picks, I
Yep.
believe. Okay, so it's even better kind of. But do you believe that the draft hype in general just hasn't been similar to years past? Because I've
Nope.
been picking up on that a little bit. I'm not sure why. Because the draft is very talented. I know that the first round is very O lineman heavy. So
Mhm.
unfortunately, I feel like that can contribute. It kind of reminds me of 2013 when Eric Fisher was the first round pick to the Chiefs. And then obviously
With
we got
Lane
Lane
Johnson.
Johnson, which was
Yep.
an amazing, best probably pick in that entire
Ever.
first round. But do you feel like there's just a little something missing from the draft hype this year or no?
Well, on our side, yeah, because you have to think about how the season ended, and we're stuck at 22. Like, are any of these guys going to put our team over to what we were last year? Like, I mean, you have to look. Is Cooper DeJean going to make our team magically appear on defense? Like, it's just not going to happen unless he's one of the best ever, like a Patrick Surtain or something like that. So you have to look, and you have to think, and you have to assess what is the bright spot of this draft? And I don't really have one until I actually see it in fruition and who we actually pick, and if I actually like it, if it actually makes sense. You know, my my entertainment for the draft, honestly, is going to be the Giants and picking another quarterback. That's going to be my entertainment because that's the stupidest franchise of all time, and it's going to set them back another 3 years. But no, seriously, the Eagles, there's not much that they could really do in this draft on paper that could make our team better than what it was last year because we're so our pick is so high in the draft. Like low, I mean. It's so I can't really expect much, but I'll be happy with whoever we take unless it's an offensive tackle or guard.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Obviously, we'll have a lot more draft coverage. I feel like it's better to review the draft than kind of preview it. Obviously, we aren't, mock draft experts, all that type of
Mhm.
stuff. But a couple last things to run down before we got to get out of here. There
So
was some.
Loopy, for a second, he says, "I think the draft isn't as hyped due to the NBA being more popular." Listen, I am the biggest Sixers fan out there. All right,
Like
I
the
love
NBA draft, like the NBA draft,
no the
not the.
NBA, like the sport being on, like the playoffs. I am the biggest Sixers fan out there, biggest Embiid supporter. I completely disagree with your statement, sir. The NFL draft would outrate any NBA playoff game, any NBA Finals game out there. That's how popular the NFL is. But it's all right. We'll have opinions. They're not all
It's
right though.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, the Eagles did some re-signings. Just a quick thing here. I want to. Would you rather like what did you like better? Who do you like better? What's going to be better for the future? Obviously we saw Devonte Smith deal this week.
Mhm.
Last week we saw Jordan Mailata get extended for 3 years, 66 million. And then obviously, to a smaller effect, we saw Avonte Maddox get another 1-year deal. But in the long run, because they're kind of both still young players, who's going to have the better legacy? And I know it's wide receiver versus O tackle, but Jordan Mailata is no slouch. He's kind of came out of nowhere, and he's a great story from rugby to starting and a Pro Bowler, I think.
I mean, better legacy in the public eye, or just
Better
prior.
player, better NFL player when it's all said and done for Mailata and Avonte Smith.
Devontae Smith. The reason being is because he was already great coming out of Alabama. He won the Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver, and he's shown no signs of slowing down. He's skinny as hell. He plays like he's a linebacker. He's not afraid of anything, and I just feel like he is the Allen Iverson of the Philadelphia Eagles, to where he plays like he plays like he doesn't care about getting hurt, and he's not built like that. He's built like the regular average day human being. And I think people adapt to him. And I think
I wouldn't say everyday human being. I would say, like, I don't know, smaller than the average, but
yeah, smaller than average.
But
yeah.
tougher than 99% of the population.
And he's already one of our better wide receivers we've ever had in our franchise history. So signing him
top 10, yeah.
Easily. And like he comes to play every single week, and he's just phenomenal. He already has a Super Bowl appearance. So giving him that deal, I think, was the perfect timing. 3 years, 25 each year, 55 guarantee. Thought it was amazing. Plus, you're giving Jordan Mailata what he needs. We need to shoe up the offense a little bit more, line wise. I'm scared to see what Cam Jurgis brings, because I wanted to bring back Jason Kelsey one more year, but he retired. And I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, to answer your main question, I'm going to say Smitty.
Going up on time, we got 3 minutes, but I'll just, just to be devil's advocate, I just will say Jordan Mailata, actually, because I think he has a better chance of being an Eagle for life, just at his position, obviously with offensive linemen. Also, he has like a big personality, kind of a little bit similar to Kelsey, with like all that Christmas album stuff and just locker room, bullshitting around. I think he's a great player. And again, his story is nuts. Like, playing rugby to becoming a starting left tackle is just, he didn't even play college football, right?
No, he played rugby.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better. So I'm excited for Jordan Mailata. I think he's just a great person too. Not saying Avonte Smith isn't, but he is a wide receiver. No, I love Avonte Smith. I think he's an outstanding player. But again, I just think that for Eagles' longevity overall career, I think, offensive linemen have a better shot to stay here their whole career than receivers. Unfortunately, we see receivers change teams all the time. Never would want to lose Smitty, but yeah, that's my opinion. Also, Avonte Max is kind of funny, just to throw this in at the end. Bringing him back, he's kind of made out of glass. And also, if I see, as long as he stays healthy one more time, I'm going to block you on whatever you just commented that on, because he will not stay healthy.
True, but as long as he stays healthy, we'll be all right.
Thank you, Kyle. And at that note, I'm logging off, right?
Yeah, with that note. But no, that deal had to get done. We got him at the right time before other wide receivers got paid. CeeDee Lamb's going to hold out of camp, so that helps. And Howie Roseman, other than his snarky remark the other day, saying how a question was asked through a vacuum, and he didn't want to answer it based off of being blindsided. It's just
I think we'll hear more about that question. I think it's going to be asked again after the draft. So we can talk about it a little bit more next week. I do have to run, Kyle, but great show as always. And like I said, we probably can do a little bit of a live stream at some point on Thursday. Obviously, we'll see you guys next Wednesday as well. Yeah. But it's draft season, guys. Definitely hype, and let's see who we pick for sure.
Yep, like Scotty just said, we have to get out of here. Obviously, it's a great show. This flew by again, and it's draft season. And next week, I will be here for a show. He's gonna check in for the pick or picks or whatever. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Our work schedules are a little bit different, and it's during the night, so we'll see where it goes from there. But hey, the journey is just starting, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the show. And thank you for another week of joining in and tuning in. And thank you, Scotty, for being here.
Awesome. Peace, guys. Have a good rest of your week.